Here are 3 things I have learned on my spiritual and healing journey. And so about 1.5 years ago, I decided to go on this journey to answer the question of why am I the way I am and why do I do the things that I do, particularly the unhealthy things that were no longer serving me. And so I invested a ton, and still do, of time, money, and energy into masterminds, coaches, programs, curriculums, even one-on-one immersions with mentors to really help me figure out the answer to that question. Like, why am I the way I am and why do I do the things I do, particularly the things that aren't serving me, or particularly the things that are hurting me in the past and I've lost relationships over, I've lost money over, I've lost opportunities over, I've lost time and energy over. Like, why do I keep shooting myself in the foot? Why am I a walking self-inflicted wound sometimes? First thing is, I've learned the difference between amplifiers of happiness and source of happiness. Right, it's a little bit of a story time here. Around 29 years old, I always say God put me in this paradoxical corner. And what I mean by that is he actually, at a young age, for some reason, gave me all of the earthly things that I thought were gonna create happiness for me. The amount of money that I wanted to make per month and per year, the business that I wanted, the house that I wanted, the cars that I wanted, right? The freedom that I wanted. And while those things are great, and I don't mean for this example to make those things the enemy, those things are fantastic, right? But what happened was he gave me those things. I was really pumped for about 15 to 20 minutes after I accomplished them, but then just back to the same stresses and anxieties, depressions, and whatever other problems that I'm worrying about. Like, all of those things didn't go away that I thought were gonna go away, at least in totality, right? After I accomplished all of these things, right? The list of things that I just rattled off. That's why I call these amplifiers of happiness, which just means they provide short-term happiness, right? Again, nothing wrong with those things. If those are goals that you have, great. Just understand that materialistic things, earthly accomplishments, business, professional accomplishments, those things are amplifiers of happiness, which just means they provide short-term happiness. People get it wrong when they think that those things are gonna provide long-term happiness, eternal happiness. And what I've realized is eternal happiness only comes from our source of God. And so I really realized throughout this process that God is the only opportunity and source of eternal happiness. And eternal happiness to me is just being your most authentic self, being as present as you possibly can to experience the present moment to the fullest without being stressed and anxious about other things that are taking you out of the present moment, or without convincing yourself that your joy is somewhere else. Your joy is out there. After I accomplish this goal, after I get through this tension, after I solve this problem, after I overcome this stress and anxiety that I'm dealing with right now, then I'll be happy, then I'll be joyful. When you start to understand that God is your source of eternal happiness, you're able to be more present, and then you're able to be your deeper, authentic self. The second thing that I've learned in this process, that is, if we do this life thing right, then we die twice. 2 different deaths. So what's your earthly death? Your earthly death is when you die to the false self and start living for what God truthfully created you for. And so in this, I have learned about the 2 halves of life, right? The first half of life and the second half of life. The first half of life is all about creating a name for yourself through accolades, achievements, and accomplishments. And the second half of life is just simply dying to that false self that we created in the first half of our life and just simply living for God. And so the first half of life is very necessary for the structuring of your ego. And I have really lived that first half of life. For the first half of my life, until I started doing this work, I thought that I gained my love and appreciation and acceptance from other people by accomplishing and achieving. And if I wasn't accomplishing and achieving, then I wasn't getting love and acceptance from other people, which was just simply so false. And so in the second half of life, it's dying to that false self and asking God, what do you want from me to ultimately live for you, to ultimately step in and accomplish that purpose that you have for my life. And the first step in that is dying to that false self. Everything that I do, what are my motives behind that? And 2 things can be true at once, right? When it comes to your motives, you can have negative motives, right? And you can have positive motives for the things that you do, or negative motives being ones that bring you further away from God, and positive ones being ones that bring you closer to God. So give you an example. I created a multi-million-dollar company with JFF, and I'm very proud of that. But if I can think of my motives, there were some that definitely were bringing me further away, right? And some that definitely were bringing me closer to God. Did I do or build JFF to impact thousands and hopefully one day millions of lives, right? And help people not stress about money anymore and take full advantage of life because of that, 1000%, right? That brings me closer to God. But is it also true that I did it to gain the acceptance of my loved ones and my peers around me? Like, he created a multi-million-dollar company, he's financially free, he's rich, he lives this cool lifestyle where he's got all these nice things and travels the world because of his business and has all these employees working for him, right? And all these people saying such nice things about him. Like, I definitely did it in full transparency to have those things happen to what I thought was going to help me gain the acceptance of my loved ones and my friends and make me cool in other people's eyes. Now moving forward, now that I'm dying to that ego, dying to that false self, dying to that first half of life, right? Between now and my actual death, where my life ends at the end of my life, right? What I'm trying to do now is just live for God. And my compass is asking myself, are these things that I am attempting to do, are my motives behind them bringing me closer to God or bringing me further away from God? And then the last thing, the third thing, is every answer that you're looking for when it comes to true transformation is internal, is within. It's not external. Yes, you're going to get good information from coaches. You're going to get good information from books. You're going to get good information from programs, from mentors, from going to church, right? But the answers that you are looking for true transformation are internal. And I love the quote that says, your life will expand into direct proportion to the hard conversations that you're willing to have with yourself, other people, and God. And throughout those conversations, right, you're going to find the answers internally that you need to be able to address the things that you need to address to truthfully transform, to truthfully get the answer to why am I the way that I am and why do I do the things that I do, particularly the things that obviously are not serving me anymore. If you want the real and right answers to them and then ultimately to be able to transform from those answers, everything you need is within. But I promise you it is worth it. I have had so many hard conversations to figure out what happened to me in life, right? Whether it was my fault or somebody else's fault, that made me the way that I am, that built my belief system, which then built my actions, and then built my reality. And if you're willing to have those hard conversations and look internally and spend the time to figure out what happened to you that made you the way you are, you'll find true transformation. But it's hard, right? But I promise you this is the real work, right? Strong-arming your way through things, tucking your emotions down and hiding from hard conversations is not going to do you any good, especially in the long haul. It's not going to make you a great business owner. It's not going to make you a great significant other. It's not going to make you a great parent. It's not going to make you a great child of God. You have to have the hard conversations to figure out why you are the way you are and why you do the things that you do, so you can ultimately start to change and do better and transform into that most authentic self that God wants you to step into. And that's where life is worth living. If you had a takeaway from this episode, please drop it in the comments. I would love to chat. If you know somebody that's gonna benefit from this conversation, whether it's sending it to your significant other so you can get on the same page, whether it's sending it to a friend or a family member or just somebody that you know would benefit from this, please share this, right? Because a big part of my journey, actually the majority of my journey, has very little to do with me and everything to do with how I can impact other people. And getting this message out is a big part of that impact and how far it will spread. And so if you haven't done so already, subscribe, right, to this YouTube episode, or to this YouTube channel, share this episode and keep coming back for more. I promise you, we're putting together intentional content that's gonna change this world, and a big part of that content is the work that I'm doing in the background to become a better human being who can speak to the audience in a much higher vibration, and I hope it serves.